birthday brunch, and my sister Catherine was holding court like visiting royalty. She twirled the embossed membership card between her perfectly manicured fingers, the gold lettering catching the chandelier light. Full membership, she announced for the third time, ensuring our entire extended family heard. Not associate, not junior, full voting membership. Do you know how exclusive this is? There's a 10-year waiting list. Mom clasped her hands together, practically glowing. We're so proud, sweetheart. The Hawthorns are finally members of Riverside. Finally. As if our family's worth had been in question until Catherine's investment banker husband Jonathan pulled the right strings to bypass the decade-long wait. And the spring gala is in 3 weeks, Catherine continued, her voice taking on that particular smugness I'd learned to recognize over 32 years of sisterhood. It's the social event of the season. The mayor attends. State senators. CEOs of every major company in the region. But of course, she paused dramatically, only members and their personally invited guests can attend. Dad beamed from the head of the table. Jonathan, you've done well for yourself. For all of us. This opens so many doors. What he meant was, this gives us the social access we've craved for generations. The Hawthorne family finally rubbing shoulders with old money and new power. All thanks to Catherine's strategic marriage and Jonathan's corporate connections. We'll need new outfits, obviously, Mom said, already mentally shopping. This isn't just any gala. The dress code is black tie and everyone who matters will be there. First impressions are everything. My younger brother David nodded eagerly. I heard last year's gala raised $2 million for charity. The guest list reads like a Forbes power ranking. Exactly, Catherine said. Which is why appearance matters. The people you meet at events like this can change your entire trajectory. Business deals happen. Partnerships form. Reputations are made. I sipped my orange juice quietly, letting the conversation wash over me like white noise. This was familiar territory. My family's obsession with social status, their belief that the right connections and the right venues would finally validate their worth. Claire, you're awfully quiet, Catherine said, her eyes glinting with something that looked like concern but felt like condescension. I know you're probably disappointed you can't attend, but don't worry. Maybe next year Jonathan can get you on the associate member track. It's a start. That's thoughtful, I said neutrally. I mean, I know your work is important to you, she continued, her tone suggesting my work was anything but. That nonprofit of yours. What's it called again? Educational something. Global Education Initiative. Right. The charity work. It's very noble, helping underprivileged children. But unfortunately, the gala is really for people in the business and political sectors. You'd probably feel out of place anyway. Mom patted my hand sympathetically. Catherine's right, dear. These high society events can be overwhelming if you're not used to that world. Better to stick with what you know. What I knew, apparently, was running a small nonprofit that my family had dismissed for the past 8 years as Claire's little charity project. What they didn't know, because they'd never asked, was that Global Education Initiative had grown from a grassroots organization serving 200 students to an international foundation operating in 47 countries with an annual budget of $180 million. They didn't know because the metrics they valued were social visibility and country club memberships, not impact reports showing 2.3 million children educated or partnerships with 15 national governments. I actually received an invitation to the gala, I said quietly. The table fell silent. Catherine's smile froze. What? To the spring gala. I received an invitation about 6 weeks ago. That's impossible, Catherine said flatly. Only members can invite guests, and Jonathan and I haven't sent out our invitations yet. We're being very selective. It wasn't a guest invitation. It came directly from the gala committee. Jonathan leaned forward, his expression skeptical. The committee only sends direct invitations to major donors or VIP speakers. You must be mistaken. I pulled out my phone and opened my email, scrolling to the message from the Riverside Country Club events director. I slid the phone across the table to Catherine. Her face went through several expressions as she read. Confusion, disbelief, and finally something that looked like panic. This says you're the keynote speaker, she said, her voice strangled. Yes. For the spring gala. That's correct. You're giving the keynote address at the most exclusive event of the year. It wasn't a question, more like she was trying to make the words make sense. Dad grabbed the phone. Let me see that. He read it, then read it again. Claire Morrison, founder and executive director of Global Education Initiative, keynote speaker. But that's how. The gala committee reached out in January. They wanted someone who could speak about global philanthropy and education access. Apparently, our work in sub-Saharan Africa and Southeast Asia aligned with their charity focus this year. Mom looked genuinely confused. But you run a small nonprofit. How would the Riverside Gala Committee even know about you? We're not that small anymore, Mom. We've partnered with UNICEF, the Gates Foundation, and the UN on several initiatives. Last year we were featured in The Economist for our innovative approach to rural education technology. The Economist? David's eyes widened. Like the actual Economist magazine? Yes. Also Foreign Affairs, Stanford Social Innovation Review, and we did a TED Talk that has about 8 million views. The silence was absolute. I could hear the classical music playing softly through the club's sound system, the clink of silverware from other tables, the low murmur of conversations that didn't involve families processing revelations about their underestimated daughters. Catherine found her voice first. 8 million views. 8.3 last I checked. And you never mentioned this because? I tried. Thanksgiving I mentioned the TED Talk. Dad said, that's nice, and asked Jonathan about his portfolio performance. At Easter, I brought up our partnership with the Rwandan Ministry of Education. You changed the subject to your kitchen renovation. At your anniversary party, I started explaining our technology pilot program, and Mom interrupted to introduce me to someone as our daughter who works with children. The words hung in the air, each one a tiny indictment. We didn't realize it was such a significant organization, Mom said weakly. You didn't realize because you never asked. You saw a nonprofit and education, and decided it was small-scale charity work that couldn't possibly compete with Catherine's investment banking world or David's law career. You measured success by country club memberships and corporate titles, and my work didn't fit that framework. Jonathan was scrolling through his phone now, his expression growing more uncomfortable by the second. Your foundation has a $180 million operating budget? This year. We're projecting $220 million next year with the new government partnerships. Government partnerships, he repeated slowly. With which governments? Currently, Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, Vietnam, Cambodia, Indonesia, and we just signed with the Philippines and Bangladesh. We're in talks with India and several Latin American countries. Dad's face had gone pale. You're working with foreign governments. Yes. We provide educational infrastructure, teacher training programs, and technology systems. It's fairly complex, which is why I stopped trying to explain it at family dinners when everyone's eyes glazed over. Catherine was still staring at the email on my phone. The keynote speaker gets introduced by the club president. Your bio will be in the event program. Everyone will know that your sister runs a major international foundation. Yes, I suppose they will. But I told everyone you worked for a small charity, she whispered. I said you were very sweet with children but didn't really understand business. I said, you said what you needed to say to maintain your position as the family success story. I understand. It's been your role for a long time. Mom's mimosa sat untouched, condensation pooling on the white tablecloth. When you said you were traveling for work, you were meeting with government officials? Sometimes. Other times it was foundation donors, partner organizations, UN committees, education ministers. Last month I was in Geneva for a conference on global literacy initiatives. The month before, Nairobi for our East Africa Regional Summit. You never said it was so important, Mom protested. I said I was speaking at international conferences. You assumed they were small academic gatherings. I mentioned meetings with education ministers. You thought I meant local school principals. I told you we were expanding into new countries. You smiled and nodded and asked if I'd met any nice men while traveling. The truth was settling over the table like fog, cold and uncomfortable and impossible to ignore. My phone buzzed. A text from my assistant, confirming tomorrow's call with the Dutch Minister of Education at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Also, the World Bank approved the grant proposal. $15 million over 3 years. Congratulations. I glanced at it and set the phone down. $15 million. Pocket change in our annual budget now, but still a significant win. Who was that? Catherine asked, her voice small. My assistant. Just confirming a call with a government minister. Which government? Netherlands. They're interested in replicating our technology model for refugee education programs. David laughed. A sharp, almost hysterical sound. Jesus Christ, Claire. You're consulting with European governments. Several, yes. Education is universal. Good models scale across borders. Dad was reading something on his phone now, his fingers moving quickly across the screen. There are hundreds of articles about you. Forbes, Bloomberg, Chronicle of Philanthropy. They're calling you one of the most innovative voices in global education reform. That's flattering. Flattering. His voice rose slightly. You've briefed the UN General Assembly. Twice actually. Once on education access, once on technology integration in developing regions. Mom looked like she might cry. We didn't know. We honestly didn't know. You didn't want to know. My work didn't come with a country club membership or a corner office or things you could brag about at dinner parties. So you dismissed it as charity work and moved on to topics you found more impressive. Jonathan was still scrolling, his face growing redder. You've raised over $400 million in funding since founding the organization. $460 million, but who's counting? I manage a $200 million portfolio and thought I was doing well. You are doing well, I said honestly. Your work is impressive, but so is mine. The difference is your family celebrated your achievements while mine overlooked them because they didn't understand them. Catherine's hands were shaking slightly. The Gala Committee chose you as keynote speaker over venture capitalists and Fortune 500 CEOs. They wanted someone focused on social impact rather than profit margins. Our work aligned with their mission this year. But you're speaking at my country club. At the event I've been planning for as the new member. Everyone will be focused on you. There was the real issue. Not that she'd underestimated me or dismissed my work for years, but that I was inadvertently upstaging her moment of social triumph. I didn't plan this to embarrass you, I said quietly. I accepted the invitation because it's a good platform to discuss our work and potentially connect with donors. I had no idea you just received your membership or that this was your first major event there. But it is, she said, her voice breaking slightly. It is my first event and I wanted to make the right impression. I wanted people to see me as someone who matters. And now they're going to see me as the keynote speaker's sister instead. The honesty in her voice was almost painful. Catherine, I said gently, you do matter. Your work matters. Your achievements are real. But you can't build your worth on being better than me or more successful than me. That's not sustainable and it's not fair to either of us. Mom dabbed at her eyes with her napkin. We've been terrible, haven't we? You've been human. You valued what you understood and dismissed what you didn't. It hurt, but I survived. I built something meaningful anyway. Without our support, Dad said heavily. Without your recognition. But I had supporters. My board, my donors, my staff, the communities we serve. I found validation in the work itself rather than waiting for you to notice. The brunch continued around us. Other families laughing and eating and celebrating their own achievements. But at our table, there was only uncomfortable silence and the weight of years of assumptions crumbling. What happens now? David asked finally. I give my keynote speech in 3 weeks. You all attend as Catherine and Jonathan's guests, presumably. We move forward. Just like that. Catherine's voice was sharp. We just pretend we didn't spend years dismissing you? No. We acknowledge it happened and decide whether to do better. But I'm not interested in making you grovel or feel worse than you already do. I'm busy enough without adding family drama management to my schedule. Jonathan cleared his throat. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. I made assumptions about your work based on Catherine's characterization, and I should have asked questions directly. Thank you. And Claire, Catherine said softly, I'm sorry. I was jealous. You had purpose, I chased status. Instead of admitting that, I belittled you. It was the most honest thing she'd said in years. I appreciate that, I replied. Mom took my hand. We'll do better. We'll learn about your work. We'll support you at the gala front row. That would be nice. In the next weeks, my family kept their word. Dad read every article. Mom joined a volunteer session. David helped with grants. Catherine even reached out for donations. And they prepared for the gala with precision. The Riverside Country Club was glittering, chandeliers, orchids, gold china. My family arrived together, perfectly dressed, front row reserved. Guests poured in. Mayors, senators, CEOs, old money families. This was Catherine's world. But tonight she wasn't the star. Backstage, the president greeted me. Your work is inspiring. So many wanted your speech earlier. Even the Dutch consulate is here for you. Thank you, I said, hoping my family was proud. Dinner passed in a blur of introductions and networking. When I glanced at Catherine, she smiled, but tension showed in her eyes. Then it was time. The president introduced me with glowing praise. I stepped on stage. I spoke about the journey, from a small apartment to reaching 2.3 million children in 47 countries. I said, success isn't about validation. It's about impact. I chose to keep building even when those close to me didn't understand. Catherine cried in the front row. I told stories. The Kenyan girl who became a programmer, the Cambodian teacher who trained 50 more, the Tanzanian village that built a school. The room was moved to tears. The ovation lasted 3 minutes. Afterward, donors pledged millions. Officials requested meetings. The Dutch invited me to Amsterdam. But the moment that mattered most, Catherine found me. Your speech was beautiful. I'm sorry I didn't see it before. Thank you. He gave me a $50,000 check for my initiative. It's a start. Jonathan and I will be recurring donors. I've set up meetings for partnerships too. I hugged her. I'm proud of you, she whispered. Proud to be your sister. Mom, Dad, and David joined, all admitting they had failed me but promising to do better. That night, my family used their connections to support my cause instead of chasing status. As we left, Catherine linked arms with me. Next year, when you keynote again, I'll cheer the loudest. Or maybe join me on stage, I said. She stopped. Really? Why not? We're family. We should build each other up. The spring gala, once Catherine's dream, became something else. The night my family finally understood real